monstrous undertaking. If we were paying standard wages today, what would that have cost over a period of 7 years to use that many individuals for a religious project? It would have added to our national debt probably rather considerably, since we're already spending 40 cents out of every dollar from a printing press and not from an earned thing, at any rate. But human resources were used, and materiel was used. You think about the size of the sacrificial offerings on certain extremely special occasions, and also the material used to build the temple in the first place. 45,000 pounds of $1,700 an ounce gold for the most holy place alone, which is a 30 by 30 by 30 cube that had gold everywhere. It was an amazing construction there in the very heart of the temple. But on the day that the place was officially opened up, they had some 1,000 burnt offerings of cattle, probably could have been sheep, goats, who knows, but it was burnt offerings. 22,000 cattle in addition, 120,000 sheep at the temple dedication, all these things. The 1,000 burnt offerings actually were at Gibeon when Solomon actually received his dream from God and his wish from God. But nonetheless, you're still talking about national resources being used for these kind of things. Now, while God supplied the resources, God expected Israel to maintain a society that conformed to His will. God created the society. He provided the leadership. He provided the resources, human and material. But He also expected Israel to use it well as a good steward of the good things of God. It was, in fact, God who created the rules of society. Now, the rules did not come into being only when the nation of Israel came along. Some of these things had been around really since the beginning of humanity. You can see a reference there to Genesis 1:28, where God said, among other things, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth." Now, especially that concept of filling the earth, and then we can go on to and subduing it, cannot be done by one individual. It cannot be done by a family. The only way that you can fill the earth and subdue it is to do it with a society. So that you could argue that from Genesis 1 onward, it was God's ideas to produce not only families to do His work, but societies to do His work. It's the only way that you can subdue the earth and fill it. But how does a society do that? Is it merely just bringing lots of people in the world and having them automatically know exactly what to do? No, it requires families that will carefully train their children, and then it requires families that can work together hospitably with other families. That requires rules. That requires discipline. That requires ultimately guidance from God. So that God from the very beginning had intended for societies to exist, and to exist in an orderly sort of fashion to accomplish massive goals far beyond the reach of any individual or family. In Genesis 26, there's a reference that notes that Abraham had also been obedient to the laws, the commands, the statutes of God. That they had not been written down at Mount Sinai. Abraham hadn't had the Mount Sinai experience, but he had God. And God had given him guidance, and he was to follow that guidance. God did create rules that were to govern corporate life for individuals. Some of these rules applied to non-Israelites, not just Israel. So that from the very beginning, and Adam was not officially an Israelite, he was a predecessor to them. Noah was not officially an Israelite, but he nonetheless received guidance from God, so that, for example, in Genesis chapter 9, the one who sheds blood must have his blood shed. That's rules about the respect, the sanctity